Welcome everybody back to the Incredible Years section. This is session 2. I want to welcome all you guys back, Eric, Alyssa, and Crystal. Just a reminder, we're going to go over the ground rules that we came up with last week. I have them listed over here, and like we said last week, they will be listed every session that we have. Our first and most important rule is what happens in session stays in session. Things that people talk about in group are not meant to be shared with people outside of this room. I'm sure nobody here wants any of their secrets out or their struggles parenting beyond the safety of this room. We also have our 2-minute talking turns. That way all members of the group can talk amongst the group within the allotted time that we have. And we have our last and most important rule also, respect the hand. This is our talking hand. Anyone who's holding the talking hand, such as myself, gets their 2 minutes to speak. Now, the homework that you guys had for last week was to have special time with your kids. I want you guys to get into a group together, and I want you guys to talk about how that was for you guys, just amongst yourselves, and then we'll pass around the talking hand and get some little bullet points about how you guys had your special time. Alright guys, buzz time's over. Now we're going to start going over all of your different experiences one at a time. Eric, you start first.
Alright guys, so just to reiterate, my son James is 6 years old, and for this special time we chose to play with blocks, I actually chose to do the blocks because that was what was just out on the floor, so I figured it would just be the easiest thing to start playing with. And so him and I are playing, we're getting to start building things. I'm trying to build a car, he's building a tower, and I started asking him I was pretending to drive the car to the building, what building is this? What goes on here? And he was like, oh, I don't know. He was very just set on his building. He wasn't trying to put any names to the building or anything like that. So I was kind of at a wit's end of what to do at that point. I was just like, okay, well then we can't play together. I'm gonna drive my car over here. But he seemed fine with it. So I was trying to think of, in that moment, ways to try to get back into incorporating both of us together, but I really couldn't think of anything. Couldn't come up with anything outside of trying to, outside of really trying to do that, but that was really it.
So what would you say is one of the positives of your special time with him?
A positive would definitely be spending the time interacting together, even though there was no title put on the building for my car to interact with. We were still engaging in the same activity, we were both in the same room, we were still there doing something together, even if it was sort of not together.
And what was the most frustrating thing about special time?
Maybe the most frustrating thing was the fact that I hit that wall, I didn't know where else to go. Once I asked that one question, he kind of not that he purposefully shut me down, but it was just I didn't know what other avenue to take to try to bring those two together.
All right, Eric, thank you for sharing. Now let's give Alyssa her turn to talk.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so just to give a reminder of my kid, my son's name is Jonathan. He's 6, and we decided for special time to play with some farm animals. He loves animals. We like to go to the zoo, so we bought these special little animal toys to play with. And it was all going well. We were playing. He was a farmer, having a great time. Then he got frustrated because I wanted to play with the cow and he wasn't playing with it, so I thought it was fine. But then all of a sudden he wanted the cow, and that turned into meltdown central. He started screaming, chucking farm animals everywhere. It was quite the scene. But we were able to come back and we tidied up the toys, got back to playing, and he calmed down a bit, and we just had some special time. I tried not to ask any questions, but it was kind of hard because you're trying to make conversation. I was like, what's this horse's name? I was like, oops, not supposed to do that. But he didn't seem to mind that I was asking questions here and there. He just wanted to play with what he wanted to play with and didn't really want me to be too involved. But we spent time together, so that was kind of nice.
How did you bring him back from the meltdown? Because you said before that he was able to come back and keep playing with you. What was the thing that brought him back and calmed him down?
He just kind of needs to take time to himself. He'll have a meltdown and then just take a second and just come back. He's kind of good at calming himself down. So he was able to just be all right, I freaked out. Okay, I'm good. He he sat back down. He likes to pretend that it didn't happen. Just
What are some of the behaviors he does when he's having a meltdown? Does he cry? I know you mentioned he threw things.
yeah, he loves throwing things when he is upset. Anything that's in his path, he will just throw. Screaming. Sometimes he gets a little physical, starts hitting people, and luckily he's small, so it doesn't really affect me now, but I'm worried eventually once he's bigger it's going to be a real problem if he's hitting people. So I definitely want to work on his behavior some more.
Right, of course. And how long did it take for him to calm down? I know you mentioned he walked away. Does he walk to a specific place?
Usually he likes to go to his room, but it's not always his room. He usually just like takes a walk, maybe like around the kitchen, around the living room, just kind of takes a lap and comes back to wherever we're playing in the playroom. So usually he's not gone for more than like a minute or two, just kind of cooling off.
All right, so what would you say was the best positive of special time?
I mean, not to copy off Eric, but just spending time with him was nice. You know, we're all busy. He has his extracurriculars and I have work, so getting a little one-on-one time was a nice change of pace.
And what was the biggest struggle?
The struggle was probably just like dealing with his tantrum, and I didn't want to freak out, but like it's hard to kind of be calm when your kid's screaming and throwing stuff. That was hard to sort of keep my cool and keep in charge of the situation.
All right, Alyssa, thank you for sharing. Now let's give Crystal her turn to talk.
Thank you. So just as a recap, my kid is 7 years old. His name is Marcus. And for our special time, we decided just to play with Legos in his room. I gave him, like positive affirmations, like, oh, you're doing a great job building your building and different things like that. He seemed to be very receptive of it. He didn't throw any tantrums or anything, so it pretty much went really well. I think so.
What are some of the behaviors you're trying to correct with your son, Marcus?
Well, he would have like tantrum behavior, so he would start crying and then like start kicking like blocks all over the place. It wouldn't happen too many times, but like when it did happen, it was like it got a little crazy. So yeah, I was surprised it actually went well.
So were you doing more of the talking in your special time than Marcus, or was Marcus trying to show you how to play with his toys?
At first, he was pretty quiet. I had to like lead the questions, but then he got into it once we started. We made a little story about what he was building, and so he seemed really into it afterwards.
What are some of the phrases you remember saying to Marcus that he really responded well to?
One of them was, I said, "Oh, what's this house for?" And he was like, "Oh, and then he made a little scenario with his friend, how they like playing in the house, they do different things together, and so he really liked using his imagination and making up a story.
It's really sweet. So that you probably would say is the best part, is that he was really using his imagination throughout the special time.
Yeah.
Were there any negatives that you found at all?
Not really. There was maybe this one point where he started to cry a little bit. I think I had said something that like may have not been part of his story.
Do you remember what that was?
I think I tried to say something like, oh, maybe another friend comes over and like, they want to go out to the park or something, but I guess he didn't like that too much, so.
All right, and one thing that I didn't ask any of you, which I'm going to ask now, is how long was your special time? I know we talked about last week making special time about 20-30 minutes. Were any of you able to go that long?
I only went about 15 minutes.
Yeah, it was about 10-15 with us.
Yeah, mine was about 10 minutes.
All right, well, that was really great. Thank you guys for sharing all of your experiences. I'm glad nobody had any terrible outcomes with this stuff. But looking over, we wrote down everything that you guys said were your positives and then your struggles, and how long you guys all had with your kids. It turns out, Eric and Alyssa, you guys did seem to have the most problems working on your special time with your sons, and you also had the least amount of time with your sons, whereas Crystal with her son did get the full 30 minutes, but there was still some rigid play behavior, which we talked about last session is something we need to correct. So one of the big problems that you guys did mention is that you both didn't interact well, like Eric was saying before, and that Alyssa's son was still having tantrums while playing. he was having tantrums because he was getting frustrated with the amount of questions you were asking him about his toys and his farm animals, and then taking a toy that he wasn't playing with without asking permission. So basically, I'm sure what was going on in your mind is if I ask too many questions, he gets mad, but then if I don't ask him a question, he's going to throw a fit anyway. What am I supposed to do? Eric, your problem seemed to be that you just had no way of relating to your son, which seems to be a problem a lot of parents have, which is why we run these sessions in the first place. So some things that we can do to work on that is try to not ask questions. Asking lots of questions about, I can't talk and write at the same time. Which sounds absolutely insane. How do you talk, how do you interact with someone without asking questions? If you ask a kid who's playing a game that they're used to playing by themselves, like Legos or blocks or little farm animals, they're not used to talking or asking questions. If you ever watch young kids play together, they're not asking questions except for, can I have this or can I have that? They don't ask each other, what building is that or what color should this be? They don't care. They just want to play. So part of the reason that parents have a really hard time relating to their kids is because adults have question-type conversations. We want to get a lot of information out of somebody. We want to know things. We don't have to have faith in that things are just the way I want them to be because I want to. We don't have that imagination play when we're talking with one another. So we're going to try an exercise where we have a conversation amongst each other without asking questions. Now, to make this even more challenging, I want you guys to talk as your first statement about something that you know only you have done in the room. Like, let's say you went on a vacation to the Bahamas and you know the other two parents haven't. Your first instinct is, how was your vacation? Can't do that. So let's try something like that, where it's a conversation that you know you would have to ask lots of questions about. Topics about things that you don't know, that you would want to get information from somebody else about.
Last month, me and my son went on a vacation to Texas.
My family recently went on a vacation to Florida too.
Yeah, me and my family are planning a vacation, for the future.
I want to ask where you're going, but I can't do that. So
Eric, that's cheating.
I know. So let's say. No, I can't. That's a question too. I can't ask where you've been. That's a question too.
Somebody else give a shot while Eric thinks.
Oh, I was trying to think of things to say too, but everything was going to be a question. Like, are you excited? Are you looking forward to it?
Why don't we try talking about those positive affirmation statements and feedback that we talked about in our first session when we used for special time? Try to give that positive, specific feedback about what the other person is saying.
Okay. So tell me about something you did while you were on vacation.
We went to the beach a lot. We swam with dolphins, had a great time.
Oh, that's super cool. I've never gone swimming with the dolphins before.
Yeah, it was quite an experience. We all had a great time.
Wow. That's really cool. I'd like to ask how many dolphins there were.
Eric, let's remember we can't cheat.
I can't ask about that.
Crystal, what are you thinking about?
I want to ask how your kid responded to all this excitement, but I guess tell me how your son responded to everything.
Oh, he loved it. At first, he was a little scared of the dolphins. They came up swimming real quick, but he warmed up. He rode the dolphin one-handed, very adventurous kid. I thought he was gonna let go and go flying off into the ocean, but he didn't. He kept it together. He kept
That's
his
really
cool.
cool. That must have been really fun to see him interact like that.
It was hilarious watching him ride a dolphin. It was just the funniest thing you've ever seen. I have a video I could show you next week.
Okay.
Now, this is something I want to point out. Not that you guys can see each other, but notice the way Eric was actually responding to Alyssa when he was asking all those questions. And he said, wow, that's really cool. You were genuinely interested in what she had to say, and you didn't have to ask her anything about what she did. You listened. You can find genuine enjoyment in things that your kids say to you if you listen rather than asking them hundreds of questions about what they want.
Okay. I see that how that could work. I guess it's just instinct for just to get more information to ask questions.